Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. It's my pleasure to bring on Michael Robison, CEO of D5 Group. Thanks for being on the show, Michael.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Very thankful to be here.
Okay. Give us some background on you, what D5 does, and then I've got a list of questions for you.
Absolutely. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I am a serial entrepreneur over the years, but have found my specialty as a corporate communications specialist. And so I've done that through creating some pretty incredible workshops and resources that we use in the corporate world. And D5 Group is really the opus of those things over the last 18 years of my career, of using D5 Group to come in and help people define, develop, and create their idea, their product, their vision, bring it to life, and align a team, align an organization, a company around those things, and find success and actually find fulfillment is really what we want in this journey, right? I mean, we could pat our pockets and we can win awards and trophies and get published and all those things, but if I don't go home at night and find fulfillment, what good is any of it?
Just spoken like a true entrepreneur with a passion for not only helping yourself, because you got to help yourself first, but helping everybody around you. What's the most important ingredient for a healthy team?
Good communication, period. And good communication is built on a lot of other fundamentals. But if I can't communicate well with my team, if I can't communicate who I am and understand who they are, and we can't do that together, there's never healthy growth. There's never healthy disagreement. There's never there are healthy tensions, right? And all of those things are cultivated, born, and corrected in healthy communication, and allows you to move forward. Something that we believe at D5 that is absolutely essential, that if a team can speak the same language, absolutely nothing gets in their way.
I agree. On that note of communication, D5, what does it stand for?
All right, it stands for dream, define, develop, deploy, and demand. All the stages of helping you go from start to finish in your entrepreneurial or your business journey.
Well, on that note, give me clarity in mission, values, and vision.
Really straightforward. Our deal is that we want to create healthy companies that make an impact, and we do that through creating healthy leaders and healthy teams. And so we want to help leaders align their entire life. So I think a lot of times what we find, whether it's the entrepreneur or the seasoned executive that's in a Fortune 100, what we find is a lot of times it's like our careers and our personal lives are separated. Like there's a barrier between the two. And what we actually like to do is bring those things together to help individuals align their personal values, their business practices, and their passions. And when you do that, we've got a very, very unique tool we call the Alignment Blueprint that helps individuals do that. And now they can communicate. They find out that the decisions I make at work, the decisions I make at home, the relationships I have at home and at work, they work together. Because as individuals, whether you're married or single, whether you're running a small organization or a large organization, there are two sets of relationships in our lives as entrepreneurs and business leaders that will matter most, and that would be our team at the office, and that would be our team and our home.
Yeah, you've got to be able to communicate on both levels. I understand the process of going from one to the other. That is a real fine line, being able to come down from being the boss to actually being a part of a family unit and still maintain some sort of leadership without overstepping, because those rules are different at home than they are.
Oh, yes. Yes, they are. There is a fine line there. And I think, a lot of times what happens is we often neglect the reality that our personal values and our passions have just as much to do with our business practice, and our business practice is the same. And, what's interesting is a conversation, because a lot of times we actually do workshops between the entrepreneurs and their spouses. And a lot of times in those workshops, what's really interesting is we'll have the spouse of an entrepreneur or business leader come in and go, why do we need to talk about business practice? And I say every person has a business practice in their life, whether you're bartering at a garage sale, you're picking up a bargain, because you found a coupon and, online or whatever, or because you like a top designer brand and you want to find the best price on the most expensive item because that's the way you're wired. Those are business practices that, we choose, and we may not be business leaders. When we start to realize that everybody's life aligns across those three things, what happens is you start to break down the tension that happens in that fine line, and you can begin to communicate. Because if my wife knows when I go to the office and when I'm working with clients every day that the type of values and the drive that pushes me as an individual applies to my business as well, there's integrity on both sides. And so what happens is communication becomes a lot easier. I can talk about work and talk about life in both environments, and it doesn't feel awkward and it doesn't feel weird. And we can define roles and understanding. We understand strengths and weaknesses of individuals. And again, we love doing it in companies where it's really, really important. But for high-level leaders, we love to do it in their most important relationships as well. Because again, if I can't communicate on both sides, as a man who's been married and been with my wife for 21 years, who has a bunch of children at home, if I can't communicate well at home, why do I really think I'm going to be the best effective communicator when I go to the office too?
Well, you do have to inspire the home environment. Otherwise,
that's right.
Eventually you just stop coming back there.
That's right. Well, and I say all the time, my most important startup and my most successful, thankfully, is my family. But the reality is, at the end of the day, because listen, who else is in it? My team can quit. I pay them to show up, right? Like as an entrepreneur, they're incentivized by money or the potential of money to show up. My wife and my children and whoever else is my personal relationship in my life, their incentive is relationship, right? So if I can also translate that value of relationship into my team, here's what we know. People leave good organizations all the time. Look, we trade brands. Nobody's loyal to a brand. It could be a great brand. I mean, we could have a debate over Pepsi and Coca-Cola, right? So which one is the great brand? They're both great brands. People will leave great brands all the time, but what people never leave are great relationships. And so when we foster healthy communication and we foster that within a team, we build good relationships, and it creates loyalty, it reduces turnover, it raises efficiency, and it brings a greater increase to revenue inside organizations.
I'm waving the flag up for you, man. We're on the same page. Let's talk about something else for a second. Failure and the fear of innovation. People face that. Let's get over that one.
Yes. Well, part of it is the way I'm wired is get over it. And I think part of that comes from the fact that I failed many times. I mean, listen, as a serial entrepreneur, I've had things that have been wild success, but I always say I either succeed epically or I fail epically. There's never a middle ground. And because of that, you do have to face that, right? We joke all the time about the idea of failure, especially as an entrepreneur, as not being that big a deal. There's this moniker over the Silicon Valley culture that says we accept failure as part of the journey. Except that when you walk into a room and you have failure, people don't know what to do with it because there's this shroud of shame and guilt around it. And what happens is people try to sweep it under the rug versus learn from it and say, look, yes, it failed, but failure is part of this process. It's going to happen. It's the best education that I can have. It's the best building blocks I can have, because in that moment I find out where my weaknesses are, but most importantly, I find out how strong I really am when I walk through failure. And if we could have a conversation that says, look, my failure is not a problem, but instead a foundation for my future success, it makes a difference in the way we see it. Perception is everything. But I'm smarter now. I understand the dynamics of the communication and relationship that we just talked about because of failures I've had along the way. If it weren't for the failures, I wouldn't have the same perspective that I have, and I wouldn't put the same emphasis or give the level of importance to those things.
I agree. Is there any other statements or pearls of wisdom you want to add to the process to, say, discover a common language as a business leader or a team leader?
Absolutely. I think really here's the thing. When a leader grasps, because here's the age-old question in any leadership position, entrepreneurial, established business, even at home with family, we ask the question a lot, is it people or process? Right? So which one do I need to put my emphasis, my energy, my effort into? And we're wired differently, right? I'm a people person. That probably comes across in the way I communicate. And my business partner is all process. But the reality is that we actually, to build healthy organizations, to have the kind of impact we dream of and to see fulfillment in our journey, we need to build a process for the people and bring people for the process. So it's not about either or, it's both and. So I want to build a process that supports my people, and I want to have people who support the process, which means I now need to think about the relationships and the communication, and I need a process that fosters that. And when I do that, I now develop a decision matrix and a process that allows me to hire and recruit and bring on the right team members to support the process that I ultimately want to see in place.
I think that's critical. Absolutely critical. You hit a really, you just got me right in the heart with that one. All right, Michael, thanks for being a guest on the show. Is there any last parting words you want to have before we close out on today's show?
Man, I just want to say thanks. I appreciate you guys, for taking time to have these conversations with leaders, other leaders, to support them, to talk about what people are doing. There's so many great, amazing leaders out there who are doing things. And so thank you guys for giving them a voice, giving them a place to talk about it, and sharing this wisdom with a broader audience.
My pleasure. You've been watching CEO Money. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back with more great content in just a minute.